The night shift on Monitoring Station 47 was usually boring. Commander Talvas had been staring at the same empty holographic displays for the past 6 hours, watching nothing but cosmic dust and the occasional asteroid drift through the contested border zone. His crew moved through their routines like clockwork, checking sensors, logging data, drinking their third or fourth cup of stimulant brew. It was the kind of quiet that made soldiers careless. That's when the alarm chirped. Not the blaring emergency klaxon that meant imminent attack, but the soft, persistent beep that indicated something unusual. Junior Officer Crenvier looked up from his station, his scaled brow furrowing. "Commander, we have an anomaly at Sector 772. It's drifting." Talvas straightened in his command chair. In 20 years of military service, he'd learned that drifting usually meant one of 3 things: derelict vessels, smuggler drop points, or pirate bait. All 3 meant paperwork, but at least it would break up the monotony. "Bring it up on the main screen." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a grainy image of something tumbling slowly through space. It was roughly the size of a small corvette, maybe 200 meters long. Even from this distance, Talvas could see the damage. Deep gouges ran along the hull, scorch marks blackened entire sections, and what looked like a gaping hole marred the stern. "Scan it," Talvas ordered. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know what we're dealing with." The sensors hummed, and that's when things got strange. Crenvier's expression shifted from curious to confused. "Sir, the computer is having trouble identifying the materials. The outer hull appears to be iron? Steel? Some kind of primitive metal alloy that we stopped using in ship construction about 3,000 years ago." Talvas leaned forward. "Pirates sometimes used old hulks as decoys, but this seemed excessive. Life signs? Unclear. There's some kind of low-level energy signature, but it's incredibly faint. Could be emergency power cells, could be nothing." Crenvier tapped a few more commands into his console. "Sir, there's more. The fusion drive signature is unlike anything in our database. It's functional somehow, but the design is ancient. Inefficient. Whoever built this was working with technology that's at least several centuries behind current standards. That ruled out the major empires. The Kravian military, the Torvan collective, even the rebel factions all used modern propulsion systems. This was something else entirely." Talvas felt a small thrill run through him. "A mystery. Any identification markings?" "Scanning now." There was a long pause. "Yes, sir. There are symbols on the hull, but they're not in any language our computer recognizes. The translation software is completely stumped." Now that was interesting. The Kravian Empire had been mapping the galaxy for over 6,000 years. Their databases contained thousands of languages from hundreds of species, including plenty of dead civilizations. To find something completely unknown was rare. Very rare. "What about that energy signature you mentioned?" Talvas asked. Crenvier adjusted his sensors, zooming in on the readings. "It's repeating, sir. Every 47 seconds, there's a small pulse of electromagnetic radiation. It's a signal. An automated distress beacon, maybe? But again, the pattern doesn't match anything we have on file." Talvas made his decision. "Send a transmission to Fleet Command. Let them know we're investigating an unknown vessel in the border zone. Then prep a battlecruiser. I want a full boarding team ready within the hour." "Are you sure, sir?" Crenvier asked. "It could be a trap. Pirates have used derelicts before to lure in salvage crews." "Look at that thing," Talvas said, gesturing at the battered hull on the display. "Whatever happened to it wasn't recent. Those scorch marks are old. The metal has been exposed to radiation for years, maybe decades. If it's a trap, it's the longest con I've ever seen. Besides, we need to know what that signal says. Unknown technology, unknown language, unknown origin. This could be important." Within the hour, the battlecruiser Sovereign Fist moved into position. Talvas stood on the bridge, watching as the massive warship's tractor beams locked onto the derelict. Up close, the damage was even worse than he'd thought. Entire sections of the hull had been torn away. Whatever had attacked this vessel had hit it hard. "Bring it into the main hangar bay," he ordered. "Carefully. I don't want that thing breaking apart before we get a chance to examine it." As the alien craft was slowly pulled inside the hangar, Talvas noticed something painted on the side, barely visible under layers of scoring and damage. Human letters, he would later learn, spelling out a name: Defiant Hope. The boarding team assembled in full combat armor, weapons ready. Talvas joined them, unable to resist seeing this mystery up close. As they approached the airlock, a tech specialist scanned the hull and whistled softly. "Commander, based on the radiation exposure and micrometeorite damage, I'd estimate this ship has been drifting for at least 40 to 50 years. 50 years. Talvas looked at the battered hull with new respect. Whatever species built this, they'd constructed it to last. The fact that any systems were still functional after half a century adrift was impressive for such primitive technology. Can you access the airlock? He asked. The tech nodded. The mechanism is simple. Almost crude. Give me 2 minutes. As they waited, Talvas couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something significant. Something that would change everything. He just didn't know how right he was. The airlock hissed open and Talvas stepped inside with his boarding team, weapons raised but not aimed. The interior of the craft was dark, lit only by emergency lighting that cast everything in a dim red glow. The air was cold enough that their breath misted in front of their faces. Atmosphere is breathable, one of the science team members announced, checking her handheld scanner. Oxygen-nitrogen mix. Temperature is near freezing, but that seems intentional. Talvas moved deeper into the ship. The corridor was cramped by Kravian standards, clearly built for smaller beings. Strange symbols covered the walls, labels for equipment or directions perhaps. Everything had that same makeshift quality, like whoever built this was working with limited resources. They found the pods in what appeared to be the main crew quarters. 6 cylindrical chambers lined the walls, connected by a maze of tubes and wires. Frost covered the glass viewing ports. The science team leader, Dr. Velmos, approached cautiously, wiping away the ice on the first pod. Empty, she said. She moved to the second. Also empty. Then the third. Commander, this one has a body inside. Deceased. Life support failed at some point. Talvas felt a pang of something like sympathy. Whoever these beings were, they tried to survive. Failed but tried. Check the rest. Velmos moved quickly now. 4 and 5 are empty. But 6. She pressed her scanner against the glass. Her eyes widened. Commander, I'm reading life signs. Faint but present. Actually, wait. She moved back to pod 3. This one too. And, yes, pod 2 as well. 3 survivors. How is that possible? Talvas asked. You said the ship's been drifting for 50 years. These are hibernation pods, Velmos explained, her voice filled with something like disbelief. We used similar technology thousands of years ago before we developed faster-than-light travel. It slows the metabolic processes down to almost nothing. Incredibly risky and inefficient, but theoretically if the pods maintained even minimal power, occupants could survive for decades. Talvas made a decision that would later be questioned by his superiors. Protocol said to leave unknown life forms contained until proper quarantine could be established. But these beings had been trapped in frozen sleep for 50 years. They deserved better than to wake up in a laboratory. Open them. Sir, that's against. I said open them, Doctor. Velmos worked quickly, her team connecting cables from the battlecruiser to the ancient pods. One by one, the hibernation chambers began their wake-up sequences. The frost melted away from the glass. Inside, Talvas could see figures stirring. The first pod opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The being inside gasped and sat up abruptly, coughing. Talvas got his first clear look at a human. She was small, maybe 2/3 the height of an average Kravian. Smooth skin, no scales or natural armor plating. Hair grew from her head in long strands. 2 eyes placed close together in the front of her face. Bipedal, with thin limbs that looked almost fragile. She wore some kind of uniform, dark blue with patches and insignia. The other 2 pods opened. A male human emerged from the second, taller and broader than the female, but still small by Kravian standards. The third was another female, younger looking with shorter hair. They were all disoriented, speaking rapidly in that unknown language. The sounds were strange, full of soft consonants and varied tones. The first female to wake up looked around wildly, taking in the Kravian soldiers, the alien ship, the situation. Her eyes were wide, and Talvas could see her chest rising and falling rapidly. She was scared. They all were. Easy, Talvas said, raising his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. You're safe. We found your ship drifting. We're trying to help. Of course she didn't understand. She said something in her language, quick and urgent. The male human moved protectively in front of the younger female, despite clearly being weak from decades of hibernation. Velmos stepped forward with her medical scanner. The humans flinched back. Commander, I need to scan them. Make sure they're healthy. Slowly, Talvas cautioned. The medical scans took only minutes but revealed fascinating information. No natural defenses whatsoever. No venom glands, no armored hide, no enhanced strength. Average vision and hearing. Their bones were dense but breakable. They would live maybe 80 or 90 standard years if they were lucky. By galactic standards, these beings were soft, weak, and short-lived. The Kravian soldiers visibly relaxed. These creatures were no threat at all. Probably prey species on their home world that somehow stumbled into space travel. But then something happened that would haunt Talvas for years to come. The first female, the one who'd woken first, stopped panicking. Just like that. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and looked directly at Talvas. Her expression changed from fear to calculation. She was thinking, analyzing, adapting. She pointed at herself. "Rachel," she said clearly. Then pointed at him, raising her eyebrows in question. Talvas understood. She was asking for his name. Teaching her language. "Talvas," he replied. Rachel nodded once. Then she pointed at the ship around them, at the Kravian soldiers, at everything, making questioning gestures. She was trying to understand the situation, trying to communicate despite the language barrier. Over the next hour, Rachel did something Talvas had never seen before. She listened to the Kravians talk among themselves and she started picking up words. Not perfectly but enough. She pointed at objects and repeated the Kravian words after them. She used hand gestures and facial expressions to bridge the gap. But it was her smile that unsettled them most. After assessing her situation, surrounded by armed aliens who could easily kill her, on a strange ship far from home, Rachel looked at Talvas and smiled. Not a nervous smile or a fearful one. A calm, knowing smile that seemed to say, "I understand the game we're playing now." Velmos whispered to Talvas, "Commander, the speed she's learning, that's not normal. Most species take months to pick up a new language. She's doing it in hours." Talvas watched Rachel interact with his crew, her eyes constantly moving, observing everything, learning everything. He'd captured what he thought was a weak, primitive survivor. He was starting to realize he might have made a terrible mistake. 3 days passed and Rachel's language skills grew at an alarming rate. What started as simple pointing and gesturing evolved into broken sentences, then into actual conversations. By the 4th day, she was speaking Kravian with a heavy accent but clear enough to be understood perfectly. Talvas sat across from her in one of the conference rooms, a translator device between them just in case, though they barely needed it anymore. The other 2 humans, Lieutenant Kyle Brooks and Engineer Amy Chin, sat beside Rachel, though they weren't learning quite as fast. "Tell me about your ship," Talvas said. "Where were you going?" Rachel leaned back in her chair, her fingers tapping a rhythm on the table. A nervous habit Talvas had learned. The Defiant Hope was a colony ship. "We left Earth 47 years ago, heading for a planet we called New Terra. It was supposed to be a 6-month journey." "Earth is your home world?" "Yes. We'd only developed faster-than-light travel about 5 years before we launched. First-generation drives, experimental really. We knew the risks but the chance to start fresh on a new world." She smiled sadly. "Hundreds of people volunteered. We had families aboard, children, everything needed to build a new society." "What happened?" Velmos asked from her position by the door. Rachel's expression darkened. 3 months into the journey we were attacked. Ships came out of nowhere, didn't hail us, didn't demand anything. Just started shooting. Our captain tried to run, but we weren't a military vessel. We had basic shields, nothing more. They tore through our defenses in minutes. Kyle spoke up, his Kravian rougher than Rachel's. "I was chief security officer. We had 20 personnel with small arms. Against warships. We never stood a chance. The engine core was hit," Rachel continued. "Captain Rodriguez ordered everyone into the hibernation pods while she and a skeleton crew tried to make repairs. The pods were emergency equipment, never meant for long-term use. Most of them failed. We're the only 3 who made it." Talvas absorbed this information. "An attack by unknown hostiles. Did you see who attacked you?" "No. Their ships were fast, aggressive. Nothing like yours. That's all I remember before the pod closed." Over the following days, Talvas made a decision that protocol would later call foolish. He allowed Rachel to move somewhat freely around the battlecruiser, always escorted but able to observe. He told himself it was humanitarian, giving the survivors something to do besides sitting in quarters. But truthfully he was curious about her. That curiosity turned to concern very quickly. Rachel would pause at viewports and study the other Kravian ships in formation. She'd watch crew members at their stations, observing their routines. Once she asked to see the hangar bay and Talvas permitted it. She walked around the fighter craft, looking but not touching, asking questions that seemed innocent enough. But then she said something that made Talvas's blood run cold. Your fighters launch from a single bay on the starboard side, Rachel observed casually. If an enemy targeted that bay with concentrated fire, your pilots would be trapped inside. Sitting ducks. Talva stopped walking. What? Rachel pointed at the hangar doors. One exit point. It's a bottleneck. You should have multiple launch bays spread across the ship. Redundancy. If one gets hit, the others still function. She turned to look at him. Also, your shield generators are positioned here, here, and here. She gestured at 3 points along the ship's superstructure. All visible from outside. An enemy could target them specifically. How do you know where our shield generators are? I watched the energy flow patterns when we docked. The slight distortion in space around those points. Basic observation. She said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Over the next few days, Rachel made more observations. The command deck was too centralized, easy to disable with a single strike. The weapon placements had blind spots. The crew rotations were predictable. Each comment was delivered politely, almost conversationally, but each one revealed tactical thinking that shouldn't exist in a survivor from a primitive species. Talvas finally confronted her in the observation lounge. You're not just a colony ship captain, are you? Rachel looked out at the stars. Before I volunteered for the colony mission, I served 10 years in Earth's naval forces. We had a complicated century. Multiple wars, shifting alliances. We learned to think strategically or we died. It became instinct. Your species fights each other? Velmos asked, shocked. Constantly. Until recently. Rachel turned to face them. Commander, I need to tell you something important. If my ship went missing 47 years ago in this sector, Earth would have sent search parties. And if they didn't find us? She paused. Humanity doesn't leave people behind. It's cultural. Almost religious. They'll have been looking for us this entire time. Talvas shook his head. Your ship's technology was primitive. Even if they sent searchers. 47 years, Commander. Rachel's eyes were intense. We went from first flight to space stations in 60 years. From space stations to the moon in another 10. When I left Earth, we'd had FTL for 5 years. What do you think we've built in 47 years? Where do you think those search fleets are now? You're saying your people might be close? Rachel smiled that unnerving smile again. I'm saying if you found us, they've probably found you. And I promise you, Commander, the ships coming won't look anything like the Defiant Hope. Talvas reported this conversation to High Command. They laughed. A primitive species threatening the Kravian Empire? Ridiculous. They ordered Talvas to keep the humans comfortable but contained while xenobiologists came to study them. That order came at 0800 hours. At 0847 hours, long-range sensors detected 3 unknown vessels entering the system at impossible speeds. The computer couldn't classify their drive signatures. The energy readings were off the charts. And they were heading straight for the Kravian battlecruiser. Rachel, watching from the observation lounge, wasn't surprised at all. Told you, she said quietly. They're here. The alarm klaxon screamed through the battlecruiser. Talvas raced to the command deck, his heart's pounding. The main view screen showed 3 contacts approaching at speeds that defied everything he knew about physics. They'd covered the distance from the system's edge to weapons range in less than 15 minutes. Nothing moved that fast. Nothing. Analysis, he barked at his sensor officer. Sir, the computer doesn't recognize the drive signatures. Energy output is, it's reading 30% higher than our own ships. The hull composition is unknown. Some kind of alloy we've never encountered. The officer's hands trembled over his console. Sir, they're powering weapons. Talvas felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He thought of Rachel's warning. But surely she was bluffing. These were just search vessels, probably lucky to have found them at all. Magnify. I want to see what we're dealing with. The view screen zoomed in and Talvas felt his confidence waver. The ships were beautiful in a deadly way. Angular and aggressive like blades cutting through space. They were smaller than Kravian battlecruisers but somehow looked more dangerous. Weapons ports lined their hulls, far more than should fit on vessels that size. And they moved with precision, maintaining perfect formation. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. Put it through. A harsh, synthesized voice filled the bridge. The translation software struggled for a moment before catching up. Attention Kravian vessel. This is the United Earth spaceship Indomitable. You are harboring 3 human citizens. Return them immediately and we will depart peacefully. You have 5 minutes to comply. Talvas bristled. 5 minutes? Who did these primitives think they were? The Kravian Empire didn't respond well to demands. He'd been in combat for 20 years. He'd faced pirates, rebels, and rival empires. These humans, advanced or not, were outnumbered. His battlecruiser had 3 support vessels nearby. 4 against 3. This is Commander Talvas of the Kravian Imperial Navy. The beings you refer to were found aboard a derelict vessel in our territory. They are being treated well and will be returned through proper diplomatic channels. Power down your weapons and— 3 minutes, the voice interrupted coldly. That was it. Talvas had been patient enough. Weapons lock onto the lead vessel. Shields to maximum. We're not firing first, but we'll show them they're outmatched. Sir, is that wise? Velmos asked from her station. They need to learn respect, Doctor. Talvas watched as his weapon systems came online, targeting solutions appearing on his display. The Kravian battlecruiser's main cannons were powerful enough to crack a small moon. Surely these humans would see reason. The human response came exactly 20 seconds later. Every screen on the bridge went black. Then they flickered back on, but instead of showing ship status and sensor data, they showed a man's face. He was human, older than Rachel, with gray hair and hard eyes. He wore a dark uniform with silver insignia. What? Talvas started, but the man spoke over him. Commander Talvas, I'm Admiral Jack Morrison of the USS Indomitable. Before you do anything stupid, let me explain your current situation. 20 minutes ago, our long-range sensors detected the Defiant Hope's emergency beacon inside your vessel. 17 minutes ago, we intercepted your communications and learned you'd taken our people aboard. 15 minutes ago, we breached your computer network. Talvas felt ice run through his veins. That's impossible. Our cyber defenses are. We've mapped your entire ship's layout, Morrison continued as if Talvas hadn't spoken. Deck by deck, compartment by compartment. We know you have a crew of 473. We know your shield generators are operating at 92% capacity. We know your weapons are targeting our lead ship. He paused. And we've disabled them all. Check weapon systems. Talvas shouted. His weapons officer's face went pale. Sir, I'm locked out. The targeting computer isn't responding. Neither are the main cannons or missile batteries. He frantically typed commands. Nothing's working. It's like the entire weapons grid just shut down. Shields? Talvas demanded. Also offline, sir. We're defenseless. On every screen, Morrison's expression didn't change. We currently have firing solutions on your bridge, your engine room, and your life support systems. We don't want to use them. We just want our people back. But make no mistake, Commander. If anything happens to Rachel, Kyle, or Amy, this conversation ends very differently. Talvas looked around his bridge. His crew stared at their dead consoles in shock. In less than 20 minutes, the humans had infiltrated their systems, learned everything about the ship, and disabled their defenses without firing a single shot. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was warfare on a level the Kravians had never encountered. The door to the bridge opened. Rachel walked in, flanked by 2 security guards who looked uncertain about whether they should still be guarding her. She moved to stand beside Talvas, looking up at Morrison's face on the screen. Admiral, she said, her voice calm. Captain Rodriguez. Good to see you alive. Morrison's expression softened slightly. We've been looking for a long time. 47 years for you. Felt like a bad night's sleep for us. Rachel turned to Talvas. Commander, you've been kind to us. I appreciate that. But you need to understand something about humanity. We spent millions of years as prey animals on a world that wanted us dead. Predators hunted us. Weather killed us. Disease decimated us. We survived by becoming smarter, faster, more adaptable than everything trying to kill us. She gestured at the screen. 47 years ago we had basic FTL and hope. Now, we've built these. She pointed at the warships on the display. The Kravian Empire has been spacefaring for 6,000 years. You've fought the same wars the same ways for centuries. We've had world wars. We've fought ourselves with nuclear weapons. We've driven species to extinction, including almost ourselves. We learned to innovate or die. Talvas found his voice. You're saying your entire species is like you? Strategic, aggressive, adaptive. Rachel's smile had no warmth in it now. Commander, I'm actually considered pretty diplomatic for a human. Admiral Morrison? He's what we call a problem solver. You really don't want to see what he considers a solution. On the screen, Morrison spoke again. You have 2 minutes remaining, Commander. Will you return our people or do we take them? Talvas stared at the countdown timer on his screen. 1 minute and 37 seconds. His ship was defenseless. His crew looked to him for orders he didn't have. For the first time in his military career, he felt completely outmatched. "What are your terms?" he asked quietly. Admiral Morrison's expression didn't change. "Simple. You return Captain Rodriguez and her crew to us immediately. You provide all data you recovered from the Defiant Hope, including any information about the attackers who hit them 47 years ago. And we establish diplomatic communications between our governments so this doesn't happen again." "That's it." Talvas was suspicious. "You won't attack?" "Demand reparations." "Why would we?" Rachel interjected. "You didn't attack us. You rescued us, treated us well, fed us. Let me walk around your ship. From where I'm standing, you're potential allies, not enemies. But the Admiral needs to be sure we're safe. It's his job." Talvas felt his pride burning. The Kravian Empire didn't negotiate from weakness. But he also wasn't stupid. His weapons were dead. His shields were gone. 3 hostile warships had him surrounded, and they'd accomplished all of it without firing a single shot. What would happen if they actually started fighting? "I accept your terms," he said finally. The words tasted bitter. Morrison nodded once. "Smart choice, Commander. We're transmitting coordinates for the data transfer now. Your weapons systems will be restored once our people are safely aboard. Your government will receive a formal communication request within the hour." "How did you do it?" Talvas had to know. "How did you breach our systems so completely?" "Our cyber defenses are military-grade, updated constantly. You've been using the same defensive protocols for 300 years, Morrison said. "We found patterns in your system architecture within the first 5 minutes. Your security is good against enemies you know. Against something completely new? It had gaps." He paused. "We're not trying to embarrass you, Commander. We've been hacking each other's systems on Earth for over a century. It's just something we got very good at." Over the next hour, the transfer took place. Kyle and Amy joined Rachel on the bridge, both looking relieved to see the human warships. Talvas provided all the data they'd recovered from the Defiant Hope, including the limited information about the attacking vessels. Rachel approached Talvas one final time before boarding the shuttle that would take them to the Indomitable. The Kravian commander noticed she looked sad despite her freedom. "I'm sorry it ended this way," she said. "You were kind to us, Talvas. In a different situation I think we could have been friends." "Your people have made the Kravian Empire look weak," Talvas replied, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. "No." Rachel's voice was firm. "We demonstrated that there are different kinds of strength. You've built an empire that's lasted thousands of years. That takes strength of a different kind. Stability. Consistency. Those things matter." She looked out at the stars through the viewport. "But we come from a world that never let us get comfortable. Earth has ice ages and droughts, earthquakes and hurricanes, predators and plagues. We evolved running from things with bigger teeth and sharper claws. The only advantage we had was our brains, so we learned to think faster, adapt quicker, and plan further ahead than anything hunting us." "You said you came to space looking for hope," Talvas said, remembering her earlier words. "We did. We do." Rachel turned back to face him. "When I left Earth, we just survived our Third World War. Nearly destroyed ourselves. We decided we needed a new start, new worlds where we could be better than we were. The Defiant Hope was full of families, children, people who wanted peace." Her expression hardened. "But hope doesn't mean naive. It doesn't mean unprepared. We learned a long time ago that the universe doesn't care about our wishes. So we hope for the best and prepare for the worst." "What should I tell my superiors?" Talvas asked. "They'll want to know what humanity is capable of." Rachel considered this carefully. "Tell them the truth. Tell them that the 3 ships out there are from a border patrol group. Just one group out of dozens. Tell them we've been building fleets while searching for our lost colony ships. Tell them we've colonized 47 worlds in the last 47 years. She paused. "And tell them we'd prefer to make friends rather than enemies. But we'll do what we must to protect our people." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Rachel extended her hand, and after a moment, Talvas clasped it in the human gesture of farewell. "We're not conquerors, Commander. We don't want your territory or your resources. But we don't surrender either. We don't abandon our people. And we don't forget when someone helps us or when someone hurts us." As the shuttle departed, Talvas watched it dock with the Indomitable. Moments later, as promised, his weapons systems came back online. The human warships powered down their weapons as well, a gesture of good faith. Then they were gone, jumping to FTL with a flash of light that left no trace. Talvas stood alone on the bridge, composing his report to High Command. He knew they wouldn't believe half of it. But he had to try. 3 weeks later, the Kravian High Council received a full briefing. The recording of Admiral Morrison disabling their battlecruiser. The data showing human expansion. The evidence of their rapid technological advancement. And Rachel's final warning. The council debated for days. Some wanted to treat humanity as a threat to prepare for war. Others argued for alliance. In the end, they chose diplomacy. Not because they liked humans but because they respected what Rachel had shown them. The galaxy was about to learn what the Kravians now knew. Humanity had arrived. Not as victims or conquerors but as something far more dangerous. Survivors who refused to quit, who learned from every mistake, and who never, ever stopped preparing for what came next. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the human fleet continued to grow.